Oh, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for stopping by. As you know, I have got a DMR radio. It's the Retevis RT3S, I believe is the model number. And the first week, maybe 10 days that I had it, I had to question my life choices because this was the most frustrating thing that I had ever tried to set up. I think I've said it in another video. I do IT work. I am used to whether it's Windows, Linux, it doesn't matter. I have beat almost every problem into submission that I run across. Radio programming is pretty straightforward. I usually start browsing through the menu, work my way through. Okay, here's our transmit frequency. Okay, here's where we do our codes, our tones, our everything. Pretty easy. This one, if I weren't doing this for the channel, I would have sent it back probably in the first 5 days. First off, programming this manually is not something that you're going to do out of the box. And so expect that there's going to be a learning curve. You're going to need to get the software. You're going to need to get the driver for the programming cable, which looks like a standard Kenwood, like the Baofengs use, but it's not quite the same because this is a digital radio. And so it's a special cable, even though it looks the same. So that's one thing. Fortunately, I got a model that actually had one with it, and so I got the right cable. Yay me. Then, the driver for it on Windows 11, and you may have already seen my video on this, I could not get it to work with Windows 11. I went through 5, 6 different installers for variations on the same driver. I finally moved to a Windows 10 system to work with. I went through the same trouble there, but I actually finally got it to recognize the device. At this moment, I couldn't tell you which one was the successful install. I'd have to go back through and look at my downloads and see which one was the last one, because it was a fair amount of trial on that one. And I'm concerned, to be honest, that computer is mentioning that it's got the Windows 11 upgrade available, and I'm afraid it's gonna break compatibility. And so that is frustrating, difficult, and I don't like that for a number of reasons. That much said, I've talked about how digital in the past, DMR, all of the digital modes, I have been a little reluctant to jump in because I feel like analog is a lower common denominator. And if we have emergency situations, we want something that's going to be as widely compatible and easy to work as possible. And so it makes it challenging to think about, especially if we can't program it on the fly. That, okay, well, we've got to have the computer to set it up. Now, that much said, I think after I got the programming cable set and I was able to talk to the radio with the custom software from Retevis, actually, it may have been with TYT because they've got a similar model. I'll try and do another update on that. I'm going to have several videos on this one. This has been worth getting several videos worth of content out of. I ran into an issue initially. I programmed it. I thought, okay, since I'm new to this radio, let me at least get some of my analog repeaters programmed. And so I went through, it programmed, it wrote to it, everything seemed good. And so now at the time I had the stock antenna, and I tried hitting some of the local repeaters. Nothing. I did not get the tail squelch that you usually hear when you hit the repeater, and the ID that usually comes just a few seconds after somebody hits the repeater. Couldn't get anything. I had one of my other radios, like the TidRadio TDH3 or the Baofeng 5RM, and I could hear the conversation. It was coming in strong, great signal, nothing over here. I fought with this for a couple of days. And you notice I've got it set in channel mode. Right now we're looking at the digital zone, but I've got an analog zone set up. And that's another area I want to talk about. I'm not sure that that's the best approach. It turns out that somehow it had got locked to 450 megahertz and 150 megahertz. I was programming it correctly. I had the frequencies correct. I wrote them to the radio, and then the radio was stuck on those frequencies. So what I discovered is holding these two buttons while powering on unlocked it. And I say that and roll my eyes because I don't see a good reason that it was locked to begin with. I saw some reference that, oh, if you incorrectly use your radio, it will lock to these frequencies. It's possible that when I first set it up, I didn't get my DMR ID or my call sign in the settings. That when I first set it up on the computer in the programming list, I did a couple of repeaters, and I just put in a couple repeaters, programmed it to the radio, and tried to transmit. That's all I know that I might have done wrong. Now, you notice I've got another antenna. I will note that it is a slightly different connector. It's the opposite connector as the Baofengs have, if you can see that. So we've got a little post that comes up with the hole in the middle, and the Baofengs have the recessed plug with the pin in the middle. So anyway, so it's a little different. We need a little adapter to be compatible with. I borrowed this off of another radio. I have noticed a difference in reception with this. I did finally get it working on analog and digital. I have had success. After unlocking, of course, I was able to hit analog repeaters just fine. And it took a little bit of learning to understand some of the concepts of digital as far as the local talk groups versus in this case, Brandmeister is what I set it up with. I think one of the first things you need to do if you're dipping your toe into the digital waters, go to radioid.net and get your digital ID. Seems like you have to upload a copy of your amateur license, and they'll issue that relatively quickly. And at the very least, visit brandmeister.network, and you can get your toes into the water a little bit. You can visit their hose line and monitor some of the activity that's on Brandmeister. You don't need your ID for that. You can pull it up in a web browser even. I think it's like hose.brandmeister.network. And you'll be able to hear the different talk groups. You can click on the ones that are active if you want to and monitor them. You can treat it like a scanner that way. There's an app for the phone that you can do that, which I can't show you because I'm recording on my phone right now. But those are some ways that you can start kind of dipping your toe in and seeing what's there and trying to get your head wrapped around the whole ecosystem. Most repeaters have an echo test, and I'm going to find one right here and hopefully give you an example. I've got a few things programmed in because I've got I've got several talk groups for local as well as state as well as regional. Still skimming through. I thought I had it right there. Okay, here's one of our echoes. All right, let me make sure the volume's up. KI4TQN testing 1 2 3. Takes a moment. Testing 1 2 3. Sounds like it clipped off a little bit of the initial there, but as you can tell, that's a handy feature. I made good use of this as I was setting up the radio. I did have one repeater owner reach out to me and say, well, I noticed that you have keyed up this talk group 12 times over 4 or 5 days, and outlined his policies on the repeater. And I said I didn't mean any harm. I'm testing with a couple, actually 3 antennas, because I was using the car antenna as well as the stock as well as this one, and I was testing in 3 or 4 different locations and explained everything to him. And he said, okay, it's not a big deal. I just know that there are people that will key up the repeater and just hog it for a day, for days at a time. And so be respectful of the repeater owners. If you're doing a lot, that would be a good argument for getting your own hotspot, which plugs in, connects to your internet. I like the clarity of digital when you do get it. That is pretty amazing. I don't like the idea that in order to get into a talk group, you have to key up or chunk basically, if it's not one of the static groups on the repeater slot. I'll give you a little example of that. Let me see if I can pick one that's typically pretty active. 91 is the worldwide calling. And so let me do just that. And so, yep, we're not able to. Somebody's on the repeater. Somebody's got the time slot in use. Let me try this. We've got a couple of repeaters in our area. Okay, we hit it.
I'm in South Wales in the UK.
Somebody's in South Wales.
Up here, K2WLR and W6AWS.
Can't hear who he's making contact with yet. But I've heard contacts from Russia to Indonesia and India.
MW6 Alpha Whiskey X-Ray K2WLR. The name here is Bill Bravo India Lima Lima. I am in New Jersey.
He's in New Jersey. Okay. So now I am listening to. This is off of the local repeater. I am not connected to the internet myself. The local repeater is. And I'm listening to a contact between Wales and New Jersey in the United States. Russia, India, I have heard South Africa. I have monitored from all over. Now, what will happen when you connect to a talk group that's not static on the local repeater is you will have it for about 10 minutes until it times out. The repeater settings dominate that, and then it'll return back to general use. And so a minute ago, I attempted to access the 91 group from a closer repeater than this one. This one's the other side of the county. Actually, it's the next county over. But it looks like it was tied up, that slot. So digital repeaters have 2 time slots, 1, 2. And a lot of the repeaters in our area reserve slot 2 for local, and one of them does Aries and the Tennessee statewide and a couple of other maybe linked repeaters. And then the first time slot is maybe also the statewide, but they also say it can be used for general amateur use. In other words, you can use this with any of the Brandmeister talk groups. The list is extremely long of talk groups. There's a lot to wrap your head around there. There's a lot to wrap your head around on the radio with the initial config. And I'm going to try and break that down in a few future videos and give you a few ideas of how I did it and what was wrong with what I did and how I'm going to do it next time. My end goal right now is that I'm going to get a few videos done on this radio, as it is. And then I'm going to flash it with the OpenGD77 firmware. I've heard a lot of good things about it. There are some things on the setup that structurally make more sense to me than the stock firmware. And I'll talk about that in a future video. So be sure to check back for more content as we kind of tease this out a little bit more and learn a little bit more about digital. I think there are a lot of pluses to the digital. I'm still not sold that it would be like an absolute essential for me at this point. Although, mainly my motivation, doing the channel, it's like, okay, well, let me try this, and this is going to give me some things to explore and learn and talk about. And I had also noticed that Aries and some of the other emergency groups do have talk groups that they're making use of. And so we'll explore it. We'll see how active that is. We'll see how useful that is. As you know, before I wrap up, I try to encourage people to upskill, and the folks over at hamradioprep.com have some great courses to upgrade your license. If you don't have your license, you can get started. If you do, you can upgrade. You can, even if you're an extra, you can learn more about other areas as well, like emergency communications. They have a good course on that. There is a code at checkout that you can use for a discount of 10% called Radiocomms, RADIOCOMMS. We would also receive a little bit of a commission out of that. You don't pay any more for it, you get a discount. And so it makes it an even better deal than they already are. So I'd encourage you to take a look at them if you're looking to upgrade your skills a little bit. We've got a lot to get into with the digital. There are going to be a lot of videos coming up on this radio. And even after I upgrade it to the OpenGD77, I encourage you to make sure that you like and subscribe. Drop a comment if you have had frustrations with a digital radio, if you've had just easy success, whichever extreme, let me know. I'm curious to hear. I did notice a lot of these have a high return rate, and I think this is why, because the learning curve and initial setup is tough. But in any case, thank you for stopping by. Make sure you like, subscribe, and check back soon for more content. You all take care. Thanks.